The gentleman from Maine, Mr. Poliquin.
Thank you, Mr. Lew, very much for being here. I appreciate it. I'd like to follow up on a little bit of the discussion a short time ago, Mr. Ginter from New Hampshire. One of the new regulators, as a result of the administration's new financial regulations, is the CFPB. They have a new office building for their 1,500 employees downtown, Mr. Lew, and it was a cost of the taxpayers about $200 million, and the taxpayers and the CFPB doesn't own the building. They spent about that amount of money to rehab it, and I think that's a huge waste of taxpayer money, sir. There was, Mr. Cordray was here, the director of the CFPB, in March, and he testified in front of this committee when Ms. Wagner questioned him, and I quote, "It was the Treasury who was in charge of all bureau operations at the time the decision was made." And so my question to you, sir, is there have been follow-up letters that date back now 288 days asking you specifically and Treasury, the folks that work for you, who in fact at the CFPB or Treasury that they said it was you folks who were in charge made the decision to waste that kind of money. Do you know who that was?
You know, Congressman, I responded earlier that we did follow up on this and provide the Inspector General findings. I'm happy to go back and...
Well, with due respect, sir, I have the letter right here that you responded back. It was dated June 16 of 2015. It says the Treasury is working to respond to your request. I repeat, the Treasury is working to respond to your request. That's 288 days ago. It was signed by Mr. Randall DeVolk. So I'm just asking you for a commitment now, Mr. Lew, if you don't mind. Can you give me a specific day when you'll get back to us who is responsible for wasting that kind of money?
Congressman, without agreeing to your characterization, I'm happy to follow up.
Okay, and when will you follow up and specifically give us the date when you get back to us who is responsible for making that decision?
Congressman, after this meeting, we will get back and work.
Okay, it's been 288 days, Mr. Lew. I don't want to be rude, but that seems to be an awful lot of time. Here's what concerns me, Mr.
But, you know, on August 25th, we did, Treasury informed the committee that a report by the Inspector General of the Federal Reserve Board found that the work authorizations related to the renovation were finalized after CFPB was
Mr. Lew, here's what
we have responded, but I'm happy to go back and see what additional
I appreciate that. Here's what I'm concerned about, Mr. Lew. These are very simple questions I'm asking you. They're not complicated at all. You are the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America, and if you are unwilling or unable to answer a simple question, I think it puts in doubt the American taxpayers how you're going to be able to make the decisions that affect our capital markets, our economy, and our freedom.
So we've provided 200 pages of information to the committee on the condition of the building when it was transferred.
Okay, I'm looking for.
So we've given a lot of material, and I'm happy to look and see what you're looking for.
Great.
And see if we can be helpful.
Thank you. And you won't give me a specific commitment when. Let's move on. Mr. Lew, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the budget that was submitted by President Obama a short time ago that never balances ever. You're familiar with that budget? Okay, and you're also familiar, I assume, Mr. Lew, with the fact that it increases spending by $2.5 trillion, increases taxes by $3.4 trillion. You familiar with this budget?
There's a variety of policies in the budget, but it would restore taxes to roughly where it was when we had a balanced budget the last time.
Okay, and I'm sure you also know that this budget that never balances increases the debt from the current $19 trillion to $27 trillion. It triples from the time the president arrived. So you're familiar with this budget? I'm
also familiar with it as a percentage of GDP. Okay. We've stabilized the deficit
so you're familiar with this budget.
of GDP and the debt as a percentage of GDP.
Thank you, sir. Do you think short-term interest rates remain at zero forever?
No, I don't, but neither does our budget. Our budget assumes interest rates that are far above what the current market
Then I'm also assume that you're familiar with the OMB projections that in 3 years, the annual interest payments on the debt at that time will be about $440 billion in 1 year, which will equal what we spend on Medicaid. And I'm sure you're also familiar with the fact that in 7 years, the OMB projects that the interest on the debt will exceed what we spend on national defense. So my question to you, sir, given the fact that this administration continues to submit budgets to us that increase spending, increase taxes, increase the debt, never balance, at what point, Mr. Lew, do you think those interest payments, not the percent of the GDP represented by the deficit, but when do those interest payments become a concern of yours?
Look, Congressman, as GDP grows, nominal dollars grow, and having cut the deficit by 3/4 from 10 to 2.5% of GDP has put us on a stable path. We have more work to do, but we are not at a moment of crisis like we were when the president took office. We are in a stable, sustainable place.
Mr. Lew, I would debate you a little bit on that with all due respect. I'm a former state treasurer in Maine. There are 49 states that have to balance their budgets. The government here does not. They spend what they want, borrow what they need. Do you think a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution is something that we need, Mr. Lew?
No, I do not.
Tell me why you don't.
I think you're out of time, but I'm happy to respond if the chairman would like me to.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, if the Mr. Secretary would respond to that question.
Quick response, please.
Look, I think that the responsibility for making policy rests with the Congress and the president, that a mechanical approach that would make it difficult, if not impossible, to respond to crises or economic
those are
turmoil
not, with all
would be very, very bad. I'm
With all
happy
due-
at another
with all
time
due
to have a
respect,
forward
Mr.
discussion.
Lew, there are bills that have been submitted that I've co-sponsored along with others that give plenty of flexibility in that budgetary process. The American people have seen that Congress and the administration cannot live within its means. Don't you think it's in time to help them with a
Time
institutional tool
of the gentleman has expired. I'd like